Hello, let's get started. I put together some rules of engagement for this because at the end of the day, the whole idea of this is for me to be quiet and for you to do all the talking. So, what I'm looking for here is for all of you, especially the more junior, to tell us about your experience in finding a job in tech, the good, the bad, the ugly. Happy to give you advice if you want, but it's not necessary. If you just want to vent your frustration, then feel free to do that. The only thing I would ask is that you avoid mentioning people or companies by name when you're venting. If someone is speaking and you want to come in next, then drop a line in chat. And if you go on a bit too long, I may ask you to wrap up. But that's about all there is. So, having said this, then I think the next slide is essential for this presentation. Some swearing may follow. Okay, so I'll stop presenting now. And who wants to go first and tell us about their experience of finding a job in tech?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been looking for about a year. Well, I haven't, but to be fair, I haven't been applying regularly. I finished my boot camp a year ago, just over a year ago. And I'm a career changer quite late in life. And I got a few interviews the first time round and I thought I got a job. They said, yes, you've got the job. We'll add you to our freelancers list. And then I never heard from them. So for 3 months, I stopped applying because it was really a company that I wanted to work for. I was so excited about working there. I thought it was my dream come true. And then it was a very bitter disillusion. So yeah, it was quite sad. And then I spent a long time going, oh, I still don't know enough yet. I don't know CSS well enough. I don't know this. I want to learn 3D. I want to do that, and kind of got a little bit lost. And then I started applying again in June. So then everyone's like, you've got to contribute to open source. There were these things felt I had to check off. I have to contribute to an open source project, and I was getting really lost on my own. So I was like, okay, need to do some open source project and organize a group project actually with other students from Codebar, which was a good experience in general, but it was like, it had its moments. But anyway, it was, the end result, I was really pleased with it. I thought it was good enough. Maybe it's not. And then I thought, okay, with this now ready, you're going to start making applications. And this time I didn't get a single invite to interview, nothing. I just had crickets and rejection. So yeah, I mean, a lot of swearing and effing and blinding, but I don't know what to do. I'm a little bit stuck as to what to do next, because that was, I think, I had overly high ambition. I was very ambitious. I had high expectations to begin with, and now, I'm sort of regretting that, because I think the more time goes by, the less likely it looks like, the less good it looks, so.
Okay, so let's. I'd say one of the first lessons in out of what you just said, I think, is do not stop looking until you have a contract signed in your hand.
Yeah.
So that's to come back to your first experience when they say, "Oh, we'll put you on our contractor list."
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and also, yeah, and the other thing, I keep on getting conflicting reports. Okay, Luke is asking me a question: what programming languages do I know, and what type of role? So the boot camp that I did was entirely focused on JavaScript, and we really didn't even do much vanilla JavaScript or manipulating the DOM. We went straight into React and did most of our projects with React. And I'm looking for a front end role, although I'm still quite crap at CSS. That for me has been like the hardest thing, because I have a design background. I studied architecture, and therefore I have a high sense of design sensibility. And yet I really struggled with CSS. I really struggled with it. And I was always pushed into back-end roles in the group project. I was always doing the back-end because I found the databases and stuff like that. Found the back-end side easier, but I just knew I rejected it out of hand. I was like, I don't want to do back-end because so yeah, so I'm going for a front end role and aware that the most important skill for a front end developer is CSS and being able to do pixel perfect copies of things. And I'm still struggling with that a little. But yeah, I'd like a front end role. So thanks, Bruno. You've been. I mean, I have to say, I got great advice from Bruno every time I've spoken to you. I remember it was my first codebar session. I had a session with you, and you gave me a very good high level strategy. I'm not sure I followed it completely, but the one good thing that happened is basically codebar happened to me. That was the best thing that happened in my life, because I felt kind of a little bit abandoned by the bootcamp people, because whatever, I wasn't successful straight away. But codebar has been amazing, and everything that good has happened through codebar, whether it's the group project or the people that I've met or the advice that I've had. It's just been a just consistent source of support and just amazingness every time. I just think, why are there so many nice how come I've only met all these wonderful people who are so happy to give their help and advice for free only now? So I really have to give my hats off to everybody who volunteers at codebar.
Yeah, so there's a few comments in the chat. So Hamid say, be aware when you'll see there's a lot of companies use some sort of software to filter them. Yes, absolutely. They put your CV in the database, then filter them, send them to recruitment managers and see what sticks. So, well, it depends on the recruiters. Some of them are good, some of them less so. But Luke is saying it's less about your CV, more about networking. Thanks, Luke. It's a bit of both, to be fair. It depends on the route you take to find a job. But a lot of recruiters will start with your CV, so it might be good to have it reviewed at some point.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of recruiters? I do get recruiters cold calling me. They've started to cold call me and emailing me, and because maybe it's because of my age or whatever, they're like, we've got a role for a senior developer, and I keep on saying, thank you so much for getting in touch with me, but have you got any junior roles, because I've never had a job? And they just keep on contacting me with things which are completely inappropriate, and I'm just like, did you read my CV? Or there's been a lot of that, because of my age, and I went to a good university, and they expect me to be further along in my career than I am. I think there's that bit, because recruiters do contact me, but always with roles that are just not appropriate for my level of.
So don't take it personally, because recruiters will call people and have no idea what you can do on a regular basis. I've been in the industry 25 years. They still call me and suggest things that are completely not what I can do. So that doesn't change.
Okay, all right. So, and the other thing is, I heard somebody said that for juniors, the worst thing you can do is get a job through a recruiter, because then they charge the company 35% and you become 35% more expensive than somebody who reaches out directly to that company.
Okay, yes and no. Yes, they make their money by charging the company that hires you. 35% is probably some of the highest rates. I've been quoted as a hiring manager. I've been quoted closer to 20%, and I've been able to negotiate down to 15 a couple of times. So, but the hiring company takes this into account when they hire anyway. They know that if they go via a recruiter, they will have that cost. So don't let that stop you.
Yeah. Okay. So I shouldn't be wary of recruiters too much then. I mean, if they have a role that's perfect, I should just go with it. I mean, obviously that's not happened yet, but it may one day happen. That they come up with a role that is a junior role, and that lines up with my skills and background interests.
Yeah, so basically the recruiters will open up your network, because they themselves have a network. So it's never bad to be in the books of recruiters. One of them one day might find something that's useful to you. Doesn't happen.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was been great advice again. So I'll leave the floor to somebody else.
Right. Who wants to go next? Deborah, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Yeah. So I'm older than probably most people here. And I really enjoy what I do. I'm a teacher. I teach maths and computer science. But I don't know. I'm still teaching. I'm just turning my camera off here. And I've sort of been looking, and I've had a few recruiters ring me, and that's okay. But I'm working, and obviously, I work freelance, teaching kids online to sort of catch up over on their learning from the pandemic, and that they've sort of missed gaps. So I've got plenty of work there, but I'm actively looking, and I guess I don't feel that confident, really. Even though I finished a boot camp about 14 months ago. It was an online one, and I passed. It was all good. And I've been contributing to open source projects, and I've done a few freelance projects, which take too long, honestly, because I'm a teacher and I've got that to consider and try and fit that in around that. And they've gone relatively well, but I still feel like I'm not 100% qualified. And I guess that's me being just a bit silly, really, because I do work with a developer group online, a meetup group, and they say, oh, you've done some wonderful projects, etc., etc. But I'm leaving it. I need to finish my teaching the end of next year, and then I'm really going to have a real go. But I did worry at the beginning about my age and think, but then I'm sort of one of these people that's a lifelong learner, and I really enjoy learning new technologies, learning. And with my teaching, I do lots and lots of teaching the kids and learn new ways of teaching. So I think that would be a plus for me. I don't know that people would hold my age against me. I hope they wouldn't. So I'm in a different situation to perhaps some of you here, most of you, probably all of you here. But I'm hopeful that I can, even if I only work as a developer for a few years, then I think it will be a positive experience. But as I said, recruiters contact me a lot, and that's okay. I don't mind that. But I'm not sure that I'd want to go down that route. Prefer to find something for myself, I think.
All right. So one thing first, when you say you feel that you're not ready. So imposter syndrome happens a lot in tech, and the problem with tech is that thing moves quickly enough that you can always find something that you don't know. And therefore, if you focus on thinking that you're not ready, you can always find a reason why you're not ready. One of the key things about working in tech is you always learn something new, and you always evolve in your learning. So there's a point where you've got to say, no, I can contribute to projects. I am able to contribute. You're already working on some open source projects and other things, and which means that you can contribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means that you are ready.
Yeah, I hope so. I've got a few commitments that I have to sort of fulfill for the kids that I teach, and then I will be moving on. I have to, otherwise I'll just get caught up in teaching. Teaching's very hard. Once you're a teacher, you get very caught up in it, and you always want to help the kids that you teach. Otherwise, there's not really much point being a teacher. And so I'd say about 90% of teachers have this idea that if you take on a child and you want them to improve, you want to wait to the end of the process and sort of measure their progress. Yeah. But I have to somehow break out of that next year and just say, look, you're going to find someone else to help you move on. And I've got to concentrate on me, because I've been a teacher for like 27 years teaching. I was trained in maths, my degree's in maths, computer science a long time ago, which is totally useless now because the technologies have moved on since then. And that's why I did a boot camp, to sort of upgrade all that stuff. And there comes a point when I have to break away from that totally, because I try and combine coding and teaching is really difficult, actually, because teaching always gets in the way, because as well as physically teaching online, I've got to do planning and marking and all that other stuff. It takes up so much time. So I just have to get out of that and concentrate on me, and not be nice, because that'll be the first time in 27 years that I will have done that, because all the time I've been looking after others and helping them to move on, with their goals. So, so I'm hoping that I can move on at the end of 2022, and hopefully I'll be 63 by then. Oh my gosh, because my birthday's in November. Hopefully people will not hold my age against me. They might actually think it was a positive thing, because I think I'm pretty good. I think my brain's still working fine, and I'm physically active, and I'm sort of feeling, I go to the gym and do all the stuff that younger people do. So I'm hoping that, people won't discriminate because of my age.
Yeah, so one point that is valid both for you and for Erica, or anybody who's retraining actually, that a lot of companies and a lot of recruiters often don't recognize, and that maybe you have to push, is the fact that you are not straight out of school.
Yeah,
or
I left school a
university.
very long time ago.
Yeah,
Very
so
long time ago.
you know how to work, and if you've been teaching us a class of kids, you definitely know how to manage your time. You definitely know how to work. And as someone who hires techies, what I realized is that there's a different way to manage someone who comes straight out of university with a degree with a CS degree, and someone who's retrained later in computer science. The person with a CS degree might know the technology, but they need to learn how to work, which means they probably need a good project manager. The people who have retrained, like you, I don't need to teach you how to work. You know how to do that. What you need help with is the tech stuff. And 90% of the technical teams out there are better suited to teaching people who needs help with the tech than teaching someone who needs help with knowing how to work. So, well, generally because they've got a lot of techies around to help you work out the tech problems. So that's an aspect that is worthwhile to focus on with anybody you're interviewing with, to say, listen, you don't need to teach me how to work. I know how to work. I may need a bit of help with the tech.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really interesting. No, thank you so much.
Okay, what do we have in the chat? So Luke mentioning becoming a coach, helping others reach their goals is a very marketable skill in tech. This, yeah, that is true. I'm not sure how well companies recognize this, though, unfortunately. Okay, thank you for sharing your experience. Can someone else want to share their experience? Yeah.
I'll probably turn my camera off if that's okay.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, I was just sharing a bit of my experience. So for the past 18 months, I was trying to get retrained from within the public sector. And it was really, really difficult. I was having lots of meetings. I kind of had reached a middle management position, and I was willing to go down to apprenticeship level, including apprenticeship level wages. But it was just really difficult. And so I had to leave because it was like there was no opportunity to train within the organization. And so now I'm currently on a boot camp. I'm in week 3, and it's proving to be really difficult, which I guess is good because it's like I'm learning a lot. But yeah, I don't know what's going to come next. So that will be kind of the job hunting stage. And so it will be interesting kind of whether my experience is similar to Erica's, who was also on the boot camp, I think she said last year. So yeah, so I'm still very new to tech at the moment.
So Lisa is asking, what bootcamp are you in?
Should I say names? I'm not sure.
That's okay. Yeah, bootcamps are fine.
Yeah, cool. So I'm at Makers Academy.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Codebar has partnered with Makers in the past. So the only restriction on names I had was if you were venting against a particular process, and don't mention the name of the company if you're venting. But yeah. So it's a 12-week bootcamp, isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so another 9 weeks. Fine.
It's really tough. Erica said that she was on the same one, so it'll be interesting. Maybe Erica, we can talk after this because I'm really struggling with some of the weekend projects and stuff. So we'll see.
Lisa's on Makers too.
Wow. Week 3 pre-course. So she's just a few weeks behind me at the moment. Cool, Lisa. Nice to meet you. And then Erica didn't do makers, but still happy to talk. Cool, Erica. Thank you. Erica, I'm interested in the open source project that you were doing with other people in codebar, because I saw when you first invited people. So yes, thank you. Good. Lots of support.
So on that question, for all of you who have been looking for jobs, how often do you have recruiters or asking if you've worked on open source projects? The reason I'm asking is because when I got my first job in tech, that wasn't something you were expected to do, but it looks like now everybody's expects you to have done some work in open source. Am I reading that right? Okay, so not always the case. And Eric, you've never had it in an interview question, but it's stressed at the bootcamps. So it would probably be interesting to ask the bootcamps, why are they stressing it? Because yeah, as a hiring manager, I've never really asked people if they worked on open source projects. And Hamid says you've never got asked in interviews, which means that from my perspective, it sounds like working on an open source project is particularly useful to get practice in programming, not necessarily the fact that you've done it. Does anybody else want to share their experience? Okay, I said that she applied for several hundred roles, applied day and night, and got there within a few months. Ahmed, perfect. Ahmed, if you want to share.
Yeah, hi. I joined this codebar session late, and it's my first time kind of on codebar, so I'm still kind of, just I thought I'd listen in, try and see what's kind of going on with everyone. But yeah, it's really nice to speak to you. Good.
So tell us a bit about your experience in finding a job in tech and what worked, what didn't.
Yeah, so I'm a computer science student, so I'm going into my final year of computer science, and currently I'm trying to go into the realm of data science and data in general in tech, but I've still got a lot of interest in software development and software engineering. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I've quite recently kind of prepped up my LinkedIn properly, going through my CV, trying to add stuff to it, bolster up a little bit. But yeah, I'd say I'm still kind of new in getting into or looking for careers or jobs in tech, although it's something that I obviously do want to go into, especially data science. And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. I've been, listening to a lot of people speak about, open source projects and things like this, and I've never really kind of contributed to an open source project. The only projects I have contributed to are like the group projects in my actual course, and so we've done quite a few. But yeah, I was kind of just wondering how important are open source projects in order to get employment?
I would say no. You don't have to have contributed to an open source project. I think the rationale to mention this is that it enables the recruiter or the hiring manager to actually have a look at what you've done.
Right.
Whether that makes a difference is debatable.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because if it's a complex open source project, it's often quite difficult to find out, to really understand. For a recruitment manager, it's sometimes difficult to understand what this thing does and your contribution to it.
Yeah.
So a smaller project is probably easier for a recruiting manager to understand,
mm-hmm.
but then it may not be complex enough. So I usually don't bother looking for this.
I see, yeah.
But one point that you mentioned about data science and computer science, one thing with data science is that the first jobs you will have in data science, the first jobs in data science are probably unlikely to be what you expect data science to be.
Right.
And the reason for this is that a lot of companies who want to do data science realize that they've got the first problem, which is cleaning up the data they have, because they don't always have good quality data.
Yeah.
So there is often, before a company can apply data science to some of the data they have, they usually need to have a round of
Cleaning up their data.
engineering and data cleanup. So as a junior, it is possible that you may end up doing that in your first job, the first 1 or 2 years, which in itself is not necessarily a problem, because you need to understand where your data comes from.
Yeah, I see. So obviously I joined a little bit late on this session, so I'm not really aware of your background. Or
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention my background. So I've been working in the tech industry for 25 years now.
okay.
And I started I've got a CS degree. I started as a junior dev. I got my first job in 1994.
Oh.
So yeah, some time ago.
Nah, not long enough.
At a time when the web didn't exist really. So
Yeah.
and yeah, I've been going through the whole process from then on, from junior to senior dev to technical architect, solution architect, CTO, tech lead, you name it. So yeah.
Oh, I see. So are you sometimes quite directly involved in the hiring of people as well, like juniors?
Yes, because I lead a tech team. So
Yeah.
and yes, so I've always for the past 10 or 15 years, maybe a bit more than that, I've been, if not directly making the decision, at least contributing to the decision.
Right.
On hiring.
Well, what do you think you like particularly look for? I'm not. You might be like involved in a specific industry of the tech industry or specific specialization, but what do you? Obviously, I'm coming out as a junior. If I were to start, to be fair, I do want to go into data science, but I have, I really enjoy software developing as well. So it's kind of different industries I'm looking at. But what would you say in general you look at from, for example, juniors that come out of university, because they don't have much experience, to be honest, or if I'm speaking about myself?
Well, yeah, I mean, you come out of university, you don't have any experience. That's the expectation.
Yeah.
And even when you've retrained, you will come up your first job, you have no experience in the software industry.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is some problem-solving capabilities, the ability to break down a problem. So the discussion from the Pavel's discussion in the next session about divide and conquer is actually the sort of things I would be looking at.
Yeah.
Computer language depends on the role we are hiring for. So if it's a data science role, I would probably be looking for someone to have a bit of Python knowledge, but at the end of the day, as I mentioned with Deborah earlier, the tech stuff you can learn. So if you come to us and we're looking for someone with Python knowledge, but you've done mostly JavaScript, we can probably work around that. But on the other hand, you've got to remember that you are competing against other people on the job. So, yeah, I'll basically, when hiring a junior, I'll try very hard to limit the number of essential skills that we need. So that's a piece of work we've done quite a lot in my company recently, just to boil down the essential skills to the absolute minimum. Because as a junior, you won't have a lot of experience or no experience whatsoever. So I can't be asking you to have 10 years experience in anything.
Yeah.
And so However, on things that I found very, very useful to have, I would expect anybody to have some knowledge of tools like source control systems. So tools like Git.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a wizard at Git. I mean, if you're able to do Git pull, Git push, and add and commit, that's all I need. But at least be able to do it, because that is the main tool to contribute to what we do.
Yeah. So what would you? Sorry.
Yeah, and other than that, some knowledge in one computer language. As Hamid said, some experience working with a team. I'm assuming if you've done projects, yeah, that's something we can discuss about. If you've done projects with several people, then yes, you will have worked in a team. So to come back on what we were saying earlier, maybe that's one of the value of contributing to an open source project, is to show that you're able to contribute to a team project. But on the other hand, if you've contributed to group projects like uni or in your bootcamp, then that should be equivalent.
Right. I see. So, for example, something that I do struggle with when thinking about employment is obviously there can be quite a lot of competition with people that go into like developer roles, or let's say even data science roles. From a junior's perspective, like a lot of people come out of university every single year, and a lot of computer science degrees, they kind of have the same experience that they give, like team working, like the languages, like the software engineering principles, what to follow. So what can really help someone who's looking to be a junior developer, for example, what can really help them stand out in the eyes of a hiring manager? For example, a lot of people do, for example, postgraduate qualifications. And I was wondering, like, that's something that I was considering too, kind of going into postgrad, maybe doing a master's in something. Yeah. So what kind of different ways do stand out in the eyes of a hiring manager? And is a master's degree one of them?
It can be, if it's depending on. So I used to have that discussion with other students when I was at uni about whether we should do a PhD or something, or a master's degree. And it's a double-edged sword. If you really do it in a domain where you're really interested and you want to find a job in that domain, getting the additional knowledge can help finding a job in that domain. But on the other hand, if you're not, it can also pigeonhole you. So if you're not absolutely dedicated to wanting a particular domain of application, it's less useful. If you do want a particular domain of application, and maybe that can be a useful thing to have. But on the other hand, you also have to compare that to, if you get your first job 1 or 2 years earlier, then by the time you would finish your master's degree, you would have, in counterparty, you would have experience in the industry that could count towards your next job. So there's no right or wrong answer about this one. Other than that, standing out as a candidate, I'm going to mention the opposite, standing out as a bad candidate.
Okay.
I've had it a few times when asked a question, someone tried to blag it, and don't do that. Don't try to hoodwink the person interviewing you. They usually have more experience than you do, so they will be able to tell that you actually don't know the answer. If you don't know the answer, just say it explicitly. I remember a particular interview I did years ago where we had several candidates, and one of them obviously tried to bullshit his way into the interview.
Yeah.
Whereas we had another who just went, I don't know, can you explain it to me? And we had a great discussion about the concept we were trying to discuss. And by having that discussion, that convinced me that the person we were interviewing, even though they didn't know the answer straight off the bat, they understood the concept and therefore were able to learn it.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the person who tried to bullshit us, it was obvious that that was going to go nowhere, especially considering that it was a role where they would have to be in front of customers. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to put someone like this in front of a customer.
Yeah.
And one of the best phrases I've learned, I was lucky enough to learn early in my career, is to be able to say, I don't know, but I will find out.
Yeah.
And when you say this, go and find out, and come back to the person with the answer. And it's okay not to have the answer.
Mhm.
So other than that, it can be anything that makes you stand out in an interview. It's very hard for a hiring manager to always be objective, because there's always an element of subjectivity in interviewing people. And sometimes it can just be a way to solve a problem that is interesting. So I remember two interviews that I did, which were quite interesting. One where we were hiring a front-end developer, where we were doing a soft coding test in a coding test soft, where I had set up a small problem and we were trying to work out how to solve this with CSS. What was very interesting during the interview is that she solved the problem in a way that was completely different from what I expected to see, but she did. And we had a great discussion about the different ways of solving that same problem. And that was 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember another interview we did maybe 2 years ago, which was about data science and Python.
Right.
And that was again the technical test, when one of the candidates used a way to do where she solved the problem in a way that I had never seen before. And I was like, awesome.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we need to leave the room.
Yeah, no
Thank
worries.
you for all your contribution. That's been very useful.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.